I'm Merritt Ansa, and you're listening to the Devoted Dreamers podcast, the podcast for dreamers, creators, and makers who are eager to wake up in the morning with the confidence to say, this is who God made me, and this is the dream He's given me. If you have a dream on your heart, but you're confused about how to move forward, or you have fear, anxiety, and you worry that you're not enough, you're halted by comparison because somebody else is already doing your dream, or you're struggling to believe there is anything God could ever use you for. Welcome to Season 7. You're about to receive the encouragement you need to pursue that dream. Through the stories of women just like you who have faced their fears, fought back lies, taken bold steps, and are still in the middle of it. Stick around and you will be emboldened to take the next step. Grow in confidence in your identity in Christ. Become sure of His faithfulness in your life and be inspired by the good He will fuel through you in the world. Because, sister, the victory is already yours. Hey, dreamers. I don't know about you, but this last week was hard. So if you're listening to this in April 2020, we are still in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic worldwide, not just here in the US. And also lots of weeks of social distancing are under our belt with an unknown number of weeks to come. A lot of unknown around here. I don't have to tell you any of this. You already know. But this past week here in Colorado, our local school district canceled in-person school for the remainder of the year. Now, I don't have kids in in-person school, like in elementary school yet, but I can't help but feel sad for all those kiddos who didn't and won't get to say goodbye to their friends, to sign yearbooks, to attend proms and graduations. It is a lot to bear. We are all going through a lot right now. So know that while this interview was recorded prior to all of these things happening, it's not, of course, it's not escaped my radar, but I want to tell you, like, the benefit maybe of this interview being recorded prior to us knowing all of this was going to happen is that these next 30 minutes might be a chance for you to just shut all that off and listen as I talk with Alexandra Kaval of Grace-Based Coaching, where she gives us just a little bit of a mini coaching session. I don't know if she intended to do that, but she walks us through what it was like to leave her job in corporate America and go out on her own to start her own Christian coaching business. In this conversation, I want you to listen for how much we can benefit by digging into the hard stuff in life, and how our culture tempts us to ignore it instead. And maybe that's a little bit harder right now, which I think is a good thing. Also listen for new disciplines worth implementing in your life that would be especially relevant to where we all are right now, and how to refocus worry and fear to a mindset of love and service, and then what to do with discouragement and doubt when it shows up. Okay, let's get to it. Hey, Devoted Dreamers. Today's really fun. I know I say that every time, but these interviews are just rocking my world. I'm loving Season 7, and today I'm talking with Alexandra Kaval, and she is the founder of Grace-Based Christian Coaching, and really just happy to bring her to you today to just kind of hear about her dream and the work that she's doing as a certified Christian coach for high impact women who crave more. So, Alexandra, welcome to the Devoted Dreamers podcast.
Hey, Mira, thank you so much. I can't wait to have a good conversation with you today.
Totally. And do you go by your full name, or do people call you Alex?
Good question. Both. Both in the sense of I've got Alexandra and Allie, actually. I don't go by Alex. I'll tend to answer to any of them, but the preference is either Alexandra or Allie.
I like it.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it's really fun to have you here, and I would just love for you to begin with, what is your God-shaped dream?
Yes. So my God-shaped dream, and it's just so surreal that it's more of a reality than a dream. And this side of where I'm at in life is moving from the corporate space to walking into life as a certified Christian coach for purpose driven women who just crave more intentional God centered lives. And so God has just done a work over these past few years, and to be able to step into this space to support and cheer and encourage women along, and in taking action to just meet their dreams and figure out what those are and persevere even when it's hard is just such a gift.
Talk a little bit about like what your services look like what is it like to work with a Christian coach, and what type of women are like a great ideal client for you?
Such good questions. Okay, so what it looks like to work together with a Christian coach. So a lot of people will use the word empowerment. It's almost like an empowerment process, where when we meet session together, we were just talking about it. We open in prayer, we close in prayer, and connect to God and the Holy Spirit throughout the conversation as it makes sense, and connect to just what are we seeing in your life? How have we maybe seen something similar in Scripture, and what does that mean? And so oftentimes the women who end up being a great fit, they're doers, they're go-getters, achievers, but they maybe are feeling stuck or overwhelmed and just know that something could be different. They're looking to better live out their priorities and focus on the right things and be able to say no to the right things as well. So it's not always adding in, a lot of it is simplifying as well. So that's a little bit about who tends to be a fit. And then we'll work together over a period of time. I kind of like to compare coaching to fitness in a way. You see the best results, as I'm sure it's not a surprise when you're committed and consistent. So we'll work together for several months at a time. And throughout, we'll go through the Christian coaching model. So we'll go through several steps in each session where we figure out what we'll tend to do one topic a session. What is one thing that you're feeling challenged on? Gain some awareness. What's hard about that? Where are you struggling? What have you already tried? And then we get to think, well, where do you want to go? Where is God leading you? And then we'll move into strategy. So how do you get from here to there, from where you are to where God wants you to be? And what steps can we help to create for you? What's a custom strategy based on who you are, who God created you to be, the situation that you're in? And then we think through, what are obstacles? How can we proactively work through any challenges that might come up along the way and prepare for those ahead of time? So it's a lot of questions, if you will. A lot of people end up saying, oh my goodness, I just shared so much that not almost anyone in my life knows. How did that just happen? And so that's something I'll hear oftentimes. Or sometimes people can be a little bit uncomfortable at first, thinking, I'm not used to doing this much talking about myself or my own life. And so that's really powerful too, to create a space. So grace-based Christian coaching for you and the Holy Spirit to really connect and to hear from Him, and then to do something with what you're hearing.
That sounds really encouraging. And I think specifically for the women who tend to be listeners of this podcast, like I think a lot of us probably start these dreams all on our own, or, maybe a spouse is supportive or a friend has encouraged us, but we really don't have kind of like a partner in crime or someone that we would walk through the dream with. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that sounds really, really helpful.
Absolutely. Yep. There was actually just an article that I had ended up partnering with a local news source to do. What are things that women are struggling with, but maybe don't share with their friends? And so oftentimes, in our culture, we're just so future focused, and we don't necessarily make time or space to maybe dig into the hard stuff. And so that can be uncomfortable to do. And so this creates room to be able to work through that in a real methodical way, but also a way where you're going to feel supported and encouraged, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been doing this work?
Yeah, so coming up on 4 years now, which is wild to say. Previous to that, I was in the HR space in corporate America, so doing leadership development type of work. So similar in the sense that helping to really unlock the potential in individuals. But what I love to say is took the perfect pivot. So now I get to do it and support women to just grow through our Christ-centered principles, and that's at the core of it all. So yes, it's been a few years now. Started it while I was still in corporate, and then ended up moving full time and have been full time for coming up on 2 years now.
That's so great.
Yes.
Congratulations. It's a big deal.
It is. It is a big leap. And there's just definitely so much we can even go into on that. But yeah, because it's just so different from what most other people see as normal and maybe what we've grown up with as normal or been reinforced. I know, at least for myself, a lot of what was encouraged was, security, and financial security a lot too, which I think there are reasons for that, don't get me wrong, but there's just so much more that God can have for you too. And to be able to see him work bigger and do bigger when you start to kind of think outside of your own box, if you will, is just transformational.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I would love for you if you can like put yourself back in that space of being
Yeah.
really new to it. Like, what was hard about taking this leap, and how did you even decide to do it in the first place?
Yes, so many things. Okay, what was hard? What really sticks out to me is thinking, what do others think? What are other people going to say about this? We were just chatting about Enneagram. I'm a type 3, so an achiever. So I care what other people think. That's a piece of it too. But I want to say I'm the self-preserving 3. So if I'm remembering correctly, you care what others think, but you don't want to almost admit that, if you will, if that makes any sense. And so anyway, just thinking, well, what are other people going to say? What if I, end up failing at this? What will happen then? And I'm in a great job where I make an amazing salary and have great hours and a great team. Like, this makes zero sense on the outside. So that was definitely playing those thoughts and what ifs in my mind was big at the time. And then the other thing too was even stepping into and getting clear on and owning giftings. It can feel so hard and uncomfortable. At least I found in my journey to think like, what am I good at? It was so easy for me to see where I was lacking or what I was missing. And that's where I spent a lot of my time, attention, and energy. But to be able to flip that around and consider, wow, he has purposed or gifted you to do X, Y, and Z. And when you do that, how is it a blessing not only for you, but for other people? And what does that look like? And to step into that, which maybe sounds odd that it could be uncomfortable, but I know for me, and I know for a lot of other women that I've spoken to, been asking, what is it that you're good at? To be able to say that and say that aloud can be very uncomfortable.
That's so true. I mean, just even as you're talking, I'm like, what is that? I mean, that
Mhm.
we can so easily see what we're not good at and yet miss what we are good at, or not be able to identify it because it's so natural to us or whatever. It just seems like there's probably some spiritual attack there where the enemy's like, never mind, I don't want you to see this, and I'm going to distract you or something.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely. There's so much power in leaning into those strengths, if you will. Like, I almost think of an athlete example too. You don't tend to see, let's say, a football. I don't even know football very well, but you don't tend to see a football player going and working on his golf skills, if you will. Like,
oh,
no,
right.
they're going to pour into what they're really, really good at and just get that much better. So if that works for you. But another thing to think of too is, understanding, and I want to honor too, where scripture says that his power is made perfect in weakness. So I think there's definitely a time and space for that as well. And so even when you do step into the weakness, just knowing no matter what I do, if it's walking out my strengths or if it's stepping into that weakness, just knowing that you're honoring and glorifying him in either one of those tasks.
Absolutely. So, what was scary for you, other than like, oh, I'm going to leave corporate, and what will everyone think, and
Yep. Yep. So when I started to do it, there was just there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of fear there, and a couple of the big fears that really stand out are one, perfectionism. So thinking, if I'm going to do it, I wanted this to all look great and all look perfect. and all of the things all at once. And that's just not realistic or fair to yourself. And I think that God really has a lot that he wants to grow in you in whatever journey you're on. So to be able to be open to that and kind of get into those uncomfortable spaces and lean in can be so powerful. I think I was just listening to a podcast actually where I want to say it's Beth Moore mentioned something of thinking of the pruning process. And when he's pruning you, I mean, he's in close and he has to come in close to do that. And so thinking of that, that was just such a tender and beautiful example to just know when you're in that process, when you're in that growth process, that he is there and he is there so, so close to you. So that was a really hard one to grapple with, to be able to step into something and know that it's going to take time for some growth to occur. And then the other thing was almost connected, I think, to the perfectionism was the piece around just feeling paralyzed a lot. There's so much, at least as a business owner, that you need to do and that you're responsible for. And trying to prioritize and figure out, well, where do I start? What's going to add most value? Could be very, very uncomfortable. And I know I'll hear a lot from my clients too. When you've got so much to do, when you're in overwhelm mode, sometimes what you end up actually doing is nothing because you just feel paralyzed. And so that definitely at times was definitely a fear and a concern and a reality for me. And then my personal story was what I would turn to is doing busy work, if you will. So things that felt like I was getting something done, but it really maybe wasn't moving the needle. So those were both some fears and actual challenges that occurred as I stepped into this, new phase of life, if you will.
Yeah. No, I think that's super real. Like there's all kinds of busy work to distract us from what's really at hand, from doing like the hard work. Yeah. So today, here you are. So doing this full time, you've gotten over that hump of starting. What would you say are some of the fears that you're still tackling today?
Yes. So I would say some of the fears that still come up today are, well, what's next? So considering, I've heard this phrase, it's kind of stuck with me, new level, new devil. So maybe you've been wildly successful in something, but now you're at this new level where you're learning something completely different. And new fears and insecurities can kind of come up. So maybe along the way, it's, well, what is this going to look like, now that I've hit this level, how am I going to be able to do, X, Y, Z? And I think that along the way in that process, you just learn how to surrender and you start to learn how to let go. And it's sort of, you always hear too, what gets you to this next level isn't going to be necessarily what got you to where you are. But I think from a Christian perspective, there's some disciplines that we do need to do continually. And one of those, for me, when I notice that I am feeling stuck or paralyzed or worrying too much about the future, it's remembering to operate in his strength and being able to rest in him. And just know if I'm starting to feel those things like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know what's next. Being able to really give it to him and remembering that I'm operating in my flesh instead of his power. But then another, to add one more, is my husband and I have not shared this with a lot of people, but we're in this season where we are hoping to become parents. And it's just something where you have to release control and give it to God and give the timing to God. And it can be scary thinking of, I've never been in that place before. What might that be like? What will that be like for the business? What will that be like with different relationships? And so that's another real one in the moment that we're currently working through.
Yeah. And it's not like you really can predict how that's going to exactly go. Right?
Whatsoever. No.
Yeah, there's so much out of your control. Hey, dreamer. I hope you're getting a lot out of this mini coaching session with Alexandra. I know I am. But just a quick break in the conversation here to tell you how excited I am to share our sponsor, Faithful Counseling. And the timing to hear more about them seems perfect right now, as we all probably could use a little extra mental health support. I don't know about you, but these back-to-back weeks of social isolation and coronavirus news cycles are incredibly challenging, even for an introvert like me. I'm so thankful to have recently begun seeing a counselor that I was matched with via Faithful Counseling. She's kind and compassionate, and she's helping me process through the stress and the grief I'm experiencing right now, and giving me a place to work through some new parenting challenges. Like, who knew that was going to happen? My kid just turned 5. It's been hard, but we're facing just kind of a lot of new struggles in the midst of new circumstances in our lives. So if you've never heard of Faithful Counseling, they provide traditional mental health counseling from a Christian perspective in a virtual environment. As in, you can choose video, phone, or text chat sessions with your counselor, like whatever works for you, and it is super easy to get started. There is a brief application where you specify your needs and preferences, and they match you based on that information. And then you can begin communicating in less than 24 hours with your counselor. I know what you're thinking. What if the person they match me with is not a great fit? Is it hard to switch? Absolutely not. So they want to facilitate a great match for you as much as you want the right counselor in your corner. So switching anytime is free and easy. No awkward conversations. You just go to their website, click a button, and make it happen. And all your communications, once you find that perfect match, are hosted securely online through the Faithful Counseling platform. You can send secure chat messages 24 hours a day, and you'll get timely, thoughtful responses. Faithful Counseling is also more affordable than traditional offline counseling. And since you're not going to anybody's office right now anyway, you might as well check it out. Financial aid is available if you need it. And right now, Devoted Dreamers listeners can get 10% off your first month when you go to getfaithful.com/dreamers. That's getfaithful.com/dreamers. Counselors are available worldwide, and Faithful Counseling's network of counselors have a broad range of expertise, much more than you might be able to find locally if you were to search for someone on your own. If these unique circumstances find you wanting some additional support, like I have, and you want a place to process and grow and learn in the midst of all of this, and to do so from a Christian perspective, don't wait. Don't wait till you explode like I did the other day. Check out Faithful Counseling and get 10% off your first month at getfaithful.com/dreamers. Now back to the show. Well, I wanted to ask you, as you were talking about remembering to operate out of God's strength and give it over to Him, like, is there a specific practice that you do when you realize you're in that place of feeling stuck or feeling overwhelmed? Like, what's your next step once you're like awakened to, oh, it's time for me to turn this over to God?
Yes. And one, I think, and like I just said, it's a point in the coaching process is I think everything starts with awareness. So even recognizing it and noticing that it's happening and claiming that, God, I see this happening. I want, and even whether it's thinking it, praying it, journaling it, whatever it is for you. For me, it tends to be a prayer to redirect. God, let this be you. Let this be you and not be me. But a couple other practical things is one, when I was in the corporate space, it's just amazing how God kind of grows you and has you do things that never in a million years you would think you're going to step into. But for me, one of those was presenting and facilitating. And now with grace-based Christian coaching, I'll run workshops from time to time. But that was something in the corporate world that I was not interested in whatsoever. And what someone had shared a piece of advice: when you're in front of the room and you're really nervous or anxious about presenting, remember to focus on the experience that the audience is going to get. So whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that your dream is, I guess I would say, what is it that is the hope or intention for the recipient to receive, if you will, and to be able to put your heart and energy there and thinking, I'm going to be consumed with that and make that the best possible experience, instead of being consumed with, what if I don't do a great job? Or are they going to notice that I, missed this bullet point? Or what if they can tell I'm nervous? Whatever. Let that go and instead focus on how you can serve and love whoever it is you're being called to step in for well. And for whatever reason, that mindset shift has been powerful. And then another thing, a phrase, if you will, that I just heard from imperfect bosses that has been so powerful is that brave is the new perfect. And that just was so freeing to consider brave is the new perfect. And what if this is all about stepping into courage instead of getting everything perfectly right? What might be able to change? Which brings up one, I feel like these are power packed phrases that are game changers for me, hopefully for y'all too. But going off that, another one I'd heard is, well, what if you could be a best case scenario kind of a girl? What would change in your life? What would that look like? And that's another thing that I'll ask myself when I start to notice I'm going down a rabbit trail.
Those are great. I love it. And did you mention, okay, imperfect bosses? I'm not familiar with them. Is that a book or a podcast? What's it?
I don't know if they have resources, but it's an Instagram account and they'll post really, really powerful quotes. And they recently, occasionally, they'll launch a merch line too. So I've got myself a little Brave is the New Perfect sweatshirt, which just is the best. But
yeah. I love that.
I know.
Got to go check that out. Well, what do you feel like as you've, grown this and kind of figured out your direction for your dream? What's been the best decision that you've made along the way?
I would say the best decision I've made along the way as I've grown it would probably be, it recently happened at the end of 2019, was that I ended up including people on the team, and not in the sense of there's someone else doing coaching alongside of me. Never say never. Maybe that'll come. That's my absolute favorite part of the business, and what's God calling me to with grace-based Christian coaching. But in the sense of bringing people along for either marketing or branding or social media, just support in growing this. And it's hard. It's hard because you think, oh, no one can do this quite like yourself, which is maybe true in a sense, but they are really, really good at their zone of genius, if you will. And to be able to invite people into whatever your God dream is, to allow them to walk out theirs and do it in tandem with you and what He's called you to do it was wildly powerful. So like I mentioned, we don't have kids at this time, but GSCC is my baby in a way. And so to be able to bring other women along and have them support the business in other areas has just been transformational. So powerful. And it just frees you up to do more of what it is that, you're really purposed to do and do well, and allows them to do what they do well too, which isn't that so like the Lord to be able to do that. And so that's just been a definite highlight. Highly, highly recommend.
Absolutely. That's so great. I long for the day. Not that I want somebody else to host my podcast, kind of like you said, but to have somebody else be the expert in marketing or social media or whatever. Like, it's hard to have your hands in all the things. But
absolutely. And it can be so small. It can be so small, even, an hour a week or a small, project. Just give it a taste, and you can even do a trial, with someone I'm working with too. We did a brief trial to see, is this working for both of us? And then reassess. One of the best things I've done, maybe even wish I had done a little bit sooner, but once you start, it's like the floodgates open. It went from one person to like 6 people in the course of maybe 2 months. Yeah.
What was the first thing that you said, I need to find the expert to do this?
Yes. So I would say what was it? I want to say it ended up, like I said, there were so many at once. I think it was working with someone from a marketing perspective. So I had been in business for a couple of years at that point, and to be able to just make sure, it's and fascinating too, who, you think when you start out on whatever, if you're a business owner as well, or maybe there's something else where you can relate to this, thinking, well, who am I called to serve and what does that look like? And then in reality, who ends up kind of coming in or being attracted to your message or your offering or whatever it is. And so to be able to make sure what it is that the people that are attracted to GSCC, that I'm really speaking to them and speaking to them well, and that my visuals match that. And so I remember I had a conversation with someone, no intention of hiring her. I knew maybe in the upcoming few months I'd want to do that. But once you start to hear, and like I said, once you start to hear people get excited about what it is you're doing and how they could add value too, it's just so encouraging. It's so encouraging. And it's almost like it just skyrockets, I think, so much to the next level too. It's like a multivitamin or something, if you will. And so that was really a first step to make sure that I was speaking their language and that they were truly feeling like they were in the right place, and to be able to make sure that that was in alignment was, I think, where we began.
That's great. How did you find the people that are kind of serving you and your team?
Yeah, so I virtually everyone has been a friend of a friend. Um, so just starting to ask the questions and then being directed to people through others that I maybe had met or just had connected to through an email or something else. Yeah, and that's how it had ended up working for me.
Well, if you could think, like, you've talked about a lot of potential future changes, but is there anything that you see right now that is kind of like a threat to your dream?
Mm, mm. I would say it's a great question. Um, I would say probably discouragement or doubt could be the biggest one at this kind of phase in the game. It's easy to forget, and it pains me to say that, but sometimes if we're not intentional with, I think, a practice of gratitude and reflection, that we can almost have amnesia of, well, what has God done, and how far has He brought us? How has He allowed us to pour into others? And sometimes when we're in the moment with a certain challenge, it can be just so easy to be focused on that and forget how He has been so faithful and so good along the way too. So I would say that's definitely one of them, and something that I definitely am very intentional of thinking, well, how can I combat this? Because if it keeps coming up again and again, that is a huge, I would, threat's the perfect word. And so thinking, well, maybe if that's similar for you too, at least something that I'm focusing on is one, more of the good. Last year, I had a practice where I ended up using a planner as a gratitude journal and writing at least 3 things every single day for a year. And to be able to, even if you did that now at the start of the year, I remember personally just had this powerful moment where I looked through the rest of the planner, flipping through all those pages and considering, like, oh my gosh, God is going to bless me just immensely. It just kind of blows your mind and reminds you how much He loves you. And it's just because you are, who you are. You're a daughter of the King, and it has nothing to do with what you're going to do or what you don't do. He just loves you and wants to just love on you so well. And so that's definitely something that's been on my radar to combat doubt and discouragement. And another one, there's someone, and we actually got to meet in person at an event recently, but her name's Carrie Grace. And she had shared on another podcast actually recently that she kind of has an approach of experimentation. So when you're trying something new, not to necessarily discourage yourself and think like, this was an absolute failure. It didn't go as I expected, but to consider more of, this is an experiment. And even if it, quote, doesn't work out, I'm still learning something and growing along the way. So that mindset has been pivotal. And then the other 2 things I would just add are continuing to bring others along. I think the enemy can really speak to us in an unfortunately a powerful way when we are too isolated. So to be able to continue to bring others in, whether that be through community or friendships or people on your team, that's been just pivotal for me. And I just know, I'm sure so many of you ladies too, as you continue to walk out your God dream, to consider who can you bring on board to be able to speak life and speak truth into you when lies are just coming up to the surface. And then the other thing I would add too, to kind of help work through that is I say the C's, commitment and consistency. So just staying disciplined, maybe even when it doesn't necessarily feel like it's what you want to be. Like one of the things for me personally is being more disciplined around either social media or newsletters to be able to share those more often. That's something that doesn't come super naturally, but thinking, well, if I was committed or consistent, and I was doing it not from a place of obligation, but from a place of I'm loving my people well. I'm loving my people well, and I'm sharing this passion that God has given to help them and equip and empower them to go out and to serve and to just live out their purpose. And when I have that kind of mindset, that is just going to be a game changer. So to be able to be committed and consistent has been a really good way to, I think, combat the doubt when you just are very intentional and focused. And it just becomes part of, I think, who you are.
Yeah. And so what I think I hear you saying is that you're kind of shifting the focus from like social media is a task to social media is serving my audience. Is that what you're saying? That you're loving them well by sharing helpful tools, tips, like you just did for us. So that's great.
That's exactly right. Less of a have to and more of a I get to share what God is doing in my life, and what if, like, and focusing more on like who are my people, who are the people He's calling me to care for, and speaking to them instead of being so fearful of, what if this doesn't resonate with one person? I know that can be hard for me and so many of the clients that I work with. So instead of focusing on that, focus on, who are my people and how would they love to hear this? And if I do share this, what could be the ripple effect of that? And that can get you really excited and motivated to do it and do more of it.
Oh, that's great. That's a great way to combat that potential discouragement of the day to day. I love it. Yeah. Sweet. Thank you. I feel like that was like a little mini coaching session that you just gave us.
I love it. I can't help myself.
Right? That's good.
Okay.
We'll talk about like just verses of scripture that kind of inform your work or helped you just continue to remain focused on who God is and what He's called you to.
There are a few powerful ones that definitely stick out. I had mentioned one, that His power is essentially made perfect in weakness. And so to remember, even if I feel like I can't do it, it's not about me and it shouldn't be about me. It should be about God's glory and strength living through me. So that can definitely be pivotal. And then also love Philippians 4:13, as I'm sure many of you do. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Again, taking yourself out of the equation, letting Him work through you, letting Him be on display. And then the other piece that I'll add is Mark 12:30-31, which is essentially talking about loving God and loving others. And I know for me and a lot of ladies out there that sometimes life can just seem overwhelming. Like everything is important, that you have to do everything and do it all amazing all at once. And to be able to really simplify it down and distill it down to, have I loved God today? What did that look like? How was I able to incorporate that into my day? And loving others, just being intentional about how you can care for others, and doing it from just a place of joy, really, I think can really help center us when we feel like there are a million things going on. So I've been loving that lately.
Thanks for putting us back into the Word. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, is there anything that you wish you had done differently along the way of pursuing this dream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's so fascinating kind of what sticks out here. And I just pray that this really connects with someone too, so that they don't miss out on the same things. It kind of it grieves you to share about that. But then I think it's also a place to recognize that that God still has room. Just because you maybe didn't have a lot of or as much focus in a certain area as you wanted doesn't mean that that's forever gone, if you will. So I think that there's so much grace and so much possibility still to come. But what I guess I would add there, what I would have done differently, are one, I wish that I would have spent even more time in reflection. So I think in the beginning phases of your dream, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed. There's so much you can do. There's so many different avenues to go. And it's almost like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing, well, what sticks, and trying to do all the things at once. But I feel like if I really spent more time being quiet, and reflecting and letting him speak to me in that quiet even more often, even more diligently, that would have been transformational. I really believe that to have, I kind of use the description like, even if you change your course by 10%, you're going to land in a vastly different place. And so I think creating even more space and time to hear him has been something that I've definitely been that much more aware of and encouraged to do, because when we make the space, I mean, he's always there and he always wants to and will speak to you. So that's one thing I would add. And then a couple other quotes. One was from the corporate world that kind of stuck out, is it can feel so counterintuitive. Like you feel like you've got to do. But remembering sometimes we've got to slow down in order to speed up. And so that's been super powerful lately, as well as the Lord has been speaking in a big way to me in the sense of time. And so, praise God, He's done a work in my husband and I's life with finances, in the sense that being able to surrender and just truly recognize that it's all His. It is all His, and to be able to give and give with joy. And it really hit me hard recently, like, you can do a better job of that with your time, and how important it is to surrender our time and trust that he is going to do something beautiful with our time, and we give it to him or we give it to others for him, and that the time we have left over, we're going to be even more grateful for that and use it even better, and he's just going to be glorified in a powerful way. And so that's definitely been something that's convicting me. Maybe it's someone else listening too. So those are a few. And then just kind of connected to some things we talked about earlier. I think when you do all of this, it allows you and empowers you to focus on the right things, which can be so hard when we're sort of in that overwhelm mode. But to be able to create space, hear him, and then zone in on the things that truly have an eternal, forever impact and are going to really connect with where he wants you and with ways that he needs you to love people well. I mean, that's the good stuff, and we don't want to miss out on that.
Mm. Yeah, that slowing down thing. I mean, it feels a little to me like give your dream a little bit of a Sabbath, like
Amen.
even once a week, once a little bit every day, or however that might need to look for you. I'm taking a note on that for myself because I really need that too.
I hear you 1,000%. So better and the dream better, and even being in business for a while too. I think creating space, like you're more creative to kind of see other parts in life, and that ultimately I think will bless the dream. But also even connecting, maybe if this speaks to anyone, connecting whatever you're doing with people in other industries too. So whether maybe you're not learning more about whatever it is that you're doing, but maybe you're learning more about something else, and just being able to adopt that and see things with a fresh perspective is just the best. So absolutely, I'm all for that space and would encourage that as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know that you had a couple of things you wanted to offer to the listeners. Do you want to go ahead and chat about that now?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of great things that I would love, love, love to gift you guys if you would like is, one is when you join the Grace-Based Christian Coaching email family, I have an ebook to gift you as part of our email welcome series. And what that is, it's talking about all about how to make your vision board come to life in 7 simple steps. So it will walk you through, maybe you've got your goals created. A vision board is essentially, seeing your goals in a visual form. But once you've got that, like, how do you actually live them out? So whether it be, maybe you have your goals written out, maybe you have a vision board, how can you actually bring that to life in a God-centered way? So this is going to equip you to do just that. And when you head on over to gracespacechristiancoaching.com/subscribe, you can get that, and that'll be delivered directly to you. And then the other thing, if you are just feeling fired up and prompted to pursue Christian coaching as a tool to really get from wherever you are to wherever God might have purposed for you, I would love to consider whether we're fit to work together. And I guess this is another little piece, Merit, to add. But the first step is connecting and through a clarity call. So it's really where you get connected. We meet each other and figure out, well, what are your challenges, your goals, and figure out, is Christian coaching a good fit for you? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And if it is, and you want to say yes, I'm offering listeners $75 off a coaching package when you mention Merit in the Devoted Dreamers podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Those
Absolutely.
are 2 really great resources.
My pleasure.
It's awesome. Oh, well, friend, this has been great. I love all the nuggets of wisdom that you have shared with us. Just like I said, like a little bit of a mini coaching session right here.
Love it.
Yeah. Would you just wrap us up, just kind of in summary, as you look back at all that God has done in you and in this dream? Like, how would you describe how he has changed you, how he's transformed you in this process, and what does that look like?
Yeah. He just can do, and he will do, such a beautiful work in each of us. And what I'm especially thankful for is just the space to get to know him and love him and crave him more and more intimately. So the more you dive into his word, it's one of those things where you just want more and more of it. And it's, I think, the most beautiful way that he created us. So that's definitely been a way that he has changed me. And I never want to see that go back. And I have faith that is the truth. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm also thankful that I'm becoming more and more concerned with what he thinks or what he says about something versus what the world thinks, and to have that godly perspective. And I've heard someone else say, ultimately we are living for an audience of one, and to be able to let him become so real in your life and let your life be directed in a way that just shows that you want to live for and support and love him so well, is the absolute best.
If you're still trying to figure out what to do with your dream in a season of discomfort, this was the episode for you. As always, you'll find the show notes at meritdanza.com/podcast/148. And there I will link to all the ways you can connect with Alexandra Kaval and find links to her website where you can grab that free resource she mentioned, as well as the opportunity for a free quick clarity call with her to figure out if Christian coaching is right for you. And I think after all that, my big takeaway from this conversation, especially in this season of isolation, is what she and I talked about near the end there, about giving your dream a Sabbath each week, and the importance of finding space and time to be quiet, to let God speak to you instead of always speaking at him, and to reflect. And I feel like this is something that I know kind of intuitively is good for me, is good for dreaming and creativity. But when it comes to living it out, I'm terrible at it. Like, I'm absolutely terrible at pausing and resting like I want to do. And so if there's anything that isolation and being homebound has shown me, is that being a doer, I permit busyness to stand in the way of opportunities to pause and listen and reflect and even celebrate. Like, something goes great and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's move on to the next thing. And I know all of that is not good for my soul, and it's not good for my dream. I feel like I'm never going to do this perfectly, but I am asking God to help me figure out what that might look like. Want to join me? I would love to hear from you. Love to hear your reflections and thoughts from this conversation. DM me or find me online in the Devoted Dreamers Facebook group or over on Instagram. I would love to hear what's going on in your mind. We all want to make an impact, right? I mean, what are those dreams about anyway? Well, here's a quick way to do that right now for someone who needs what you just heard. Will you take a screenshot of this episode, tag me at MerrittJO, and share it in your Instagram stories so that together we can get this encouraging message into the earbuds of the women who are ready to fight back fear, trust their identity in Christ, and unleash the dreams He's given them for their lives. It's so simple to do, and they will thank you for your recommendation. Then, before you go, if you were encouraged by today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review of the show over on iTunes so other dreamers just like you can find the podcast. Until next time, I would love to connect with you over on Instagram or in the Devoted Dreamers Insiders group on Facebook, where you'll find a community of like-minded women who love Jesus and are in the midst of pursuing the dream He's placed on their hearts. Thank you so much for joining me today, and wherever you are with your God-shaped dreams, may you have the courage to take one step toward their realization today.